Alright, welcome back to another episode of Swing State Radio. My name is Kyle.
And my name's Brian.
And today we are going to talk about what the heck just happened in regards to the election. It was completely unseen and all the polls were wrong. I think except for the New York Times, who gave Trump a little bit of a...
I've had a day and a half now, or almost 2 days to process what happened, and I still feel like I got punched in the gut, so... I just... Who knows?
Personally, I'm kind of glad, but I didn't expect it. I lost money on this. I
did not expect it either. I mean, hell, we were sitting there 2 days ago, both predicting, like, an easy...
Oh, yeah.
Clinton win, and here we are with
like
the Trump
literally
presidency.
Had to win all those states that he was polling in,
but
very low.
The thing, and like we can get into more of this, but the thing is, he not only won the states that he had to win, he won
Wisconsin,
Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan,
and I'm pretty sure Pennsylvania.
So did he win New Hampshire?
No, I think Clinton ended up.
He got close in New Hampshire.
That one up.
And
he was like close in Virginia. So just like, and I honestly don't know if she would have won it if Tim Kaine was not her running mate.
Oh my god!
I mean, it was almost a landslide in the direction we were
going up to the election. I had an idea in mind. My idea was Hillary Clinton has a 90% chance of becoming the president, and Timothy Kaine has a 30% chance of becoming the president just because she could get indicted. And that's what I was going into it, like thinking like there's a possibility that Tim Kaine could be the president. So I started looking into him a little bit, and like I didn't like what he had, obviously, but
I honestly, this is gonna sound terrible, but I basically thought there was like a 99. Like I did not in any way envision myself sitting here today saying Donald Trump is the president.
No, I didn't either. I mean, I had money riding on this, and when I bet on it, it was Hillary had 3-1 odds or something like that.
I wish we could pull up the graphic of the odds of them winning, and it's like, you know, for the last, like, it showed like the last like few days leading up to the election. It's like Clinton at like 90%.
Yeah.
And like they basically stayed steady. Then all of a sudden, election day hits, polls start closing, and they literally, it was almost like a straight line, like just flipped.
Yeah,
I remember still just like, because I went out and enjoyed a few beers, you know, expecting to like sit there and watch Clinton win and, you know, celebrate the win.
You were one of the people crying, were
you? No. No, didn't cry, but I was dumbfounded. But I was sitting there and I was just like, I think I can still remember just sitting there and watching. It's like, okay, she needs to win every other state to win. Like, at the time, I think it was like Pennsylvania still undecided, Michigan, Wisconsin, and like, I think maybe Minnesota, but even though it went to her, I think those were like the main states that were still undecided. And I'm like, she needs to win every single one of those states. And I'm like, she's down by like 5 percentage points in Wisconsin. And it's too close to call in Michigan, but it was like, I was just like sitting there and I'm like, how could we have been so wrong?
I did not expect that at all.
I mean, I think as we like, I'm sure there'll be better analysis to come in the future, but you got to look at it, and you were like, I think inadvertently predicted the election outcome when last episode you said, I forget who you quoted, but you quoted someone as saying that they were going around Florida and they were seeing all these Trump signs, and they had no like record of them on their, like, you know, the big data stuff, but they had no record of these people, and
because they haven't voted in the past 12 years, so they're not registered.
And I think you saw the unprecedented turnout in these rural areas and even some suburban areas where people that have for so long not voted all of a sudden somehow found a voice through Donald Trump, which I still don't get. But like I get
mean,
I get their rationale. I just don't
understand
get
where they're coming from. Like is being in the rural area. They're farmers. Their farms are going out of business like crazy because of big ag and like.
And you look at I forget who did it, but I think either the New York Times or the Washington Post did a great thing, and it showed the like shift between the Obama 2012 and Trump 2016 of just like the shift of which areas shifted.
Oh yeah.
To support Trump, and it was Midwest Rust Belt states.
Well, that's where he was focusing the past 3 months.
Yeah, Midwest and rural areas.
I can't remember where I heard it. I think I was watching a little bit of CNN because CNN was fair on their election coverage. Like on the maps and everything until Wolf Blitzer just started going. Did you see that? He started going crazy.
I was watching.
He realized like Hillary
ABC and NBC. Coverage.
Yeah, I was watching CBS, CNN, and C-SPAN, and I flipped on Fox News a couple times.
Not ABC. I was watching CBS and NBC.
And I flipped on Fox News a couple times, but they had
Fox predicted Florida before
and
I'm not saying that like. I'm saying that in a sense that Fox skews to the right.
Yeah.
So of course.
And that's understandable. Yeah. That's why I flipped that off. But CNN was fairly moderate on it, and then. All of a sudden, Wolf Blitzer, I think Wolf Blitzer realized that Hillary was going to lose, and they had all these Trumps, projected for Trump to win, and they knew he was going to win, and they're like, we just called it projected, and Wolf's like, no, change it, just change it, and let's see if Hillary has a state, and, he's sort of, freaking out, had a meltdown on TV.
But I think that was, the reaction of everyone, I know, even Republicans, I was listening, so... driving down to over the Rhine to watch, the debates or whatever, or not the I don't know why I said to watch the election results. We were kind of getting updates through the radio in the car, and Republicans on the ground in Florida, as of 8:30, we're still predicting Republicans. We're still predicting a Clinton win in Florida.
That was right after the polls closed too, wasn't it? They usually close at 8, don't they?
They said both Democrats and Republicans were confident, quote unquote confident, that Hillary Clinton was going to win Florida.
See, that's where, and we can get into this later in this episode, but I think that, and we've been talking about it in class and everything, there's something wrong, and there's people who are gonna lose plenty of jobs for polling, because if you think about it, the polling for, who's the Israeli president? Shoot, what is his name? But anyway, Matt Bevin, and Matt Bevin was polling low in Kentucky last year for the governor race.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning. And who else? Who else did that?
Thinking of Netanyahu.
Netanyahu, the prime minister. He was polling to not win. And back, I think it was a couple years ago, he was polling to not become the prime minister, and it just shows how people are coming out and they're not in.
I think it is a product of one. There is a populist movement in not just the United States but across the world right now. You saw it with Brexit in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, that was the other one I was going to.
You saw it with the election of Rodrigo Duterte in the Philippines, who's basically the Filipino version of Donald Trump. You've now seen in the United States with the election of Donald Trump, and you now have strong movements in countries like France, where they have these strong nationalist populist movements. I think this is a world, and I do not think the polls, because polls, predict on factors that don't change.
Yeah,
they don't.
Yeah, and they call people and get the
polls are based on statistics. Statistics don't account necessarily for an outside externality that messes with their models. They're mathematical models.
Yeah, their models are flawed because also if you take into account,
but they don't account for the fact
loss
that
of home phones, landlines.
Yeah, like you said, well, that, but like you said, people that, they don't account for people that haven't voted in years. And all of a sudden you have this populist movement, this nationalist movement, and in the United States specifically, this like mobilization of rural, white, typically white, like lower middle class Americans that finally felt a voice through Donald Trump, and no poll like accounted for them.
Yeah,
It was like it was like almost like Obama in 2008, but the difference was the polls accounted for that, expected that to happen. This time they didn't.
The polls didn't have, the polls had Romney like leading.
I'm talking about 08.
Oh wait, yeah. But like I think we're gonna start to see a shift from pollsters who were very trusted originally, and now they're starting to get like, we shouldn't trust them at all. And I think we're gonna start seeing a shift. Like, instead of people trying to call like the landlines and like going through the yellow pages or something, they're gonna start like purchasing phone numbers from mobile phones.
Well, already through this election, I mean, just knowing, like I've already talked about in other episodes, the amount of events I've gone to. Well, when you go to these events, obviously they ask for your information and your phone number and all these things, and I get, texts and emails and all these different things. Like you said, I think we're already to the point where like they're using your cell phones for like this information. The problem is I don't know why they haven't done this yet, but like the poll's not accounting for cell phones is beyond me.
Yeah.
Like why they're not pulling using cell phones.
I think they're going to start doing that because I don't know if you got a call, but me and all my friends, like, we were talking in the group chat. It was the night before the election. It was like 9 o'clock. I got a call on my phone, and I was like, just got out of Skyline. I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up Skyline to go, and I was about to do, I think, one of our papers. And I was working on one of our papers, and I was just picked up Skyline, got in my car, and then I get a call. I was like, hello? And they're like, yeah, we're doing polling data, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay. It's 9 o'clock. Are you allowed to do this right now? Because I think it's like, you can't be doing it after 8 o'clock, I heard. But it was super late at night, and I wasn't expecting to get a call or anything. But I think, like, that last night, people were calling and, like, asking polling information. And one of their questions was, who do you prefer to be president if the two candidates weren't running? And I was like, Ted Cruz. And they're like, that's not an option. I was like, what? They're like, that's not an option. You have to pick from the two candidates running. I was like, you just said not. So I was like, preferable Donald Trump, I guess. But I think people who have received calls, like, I think that's also a thing. Like, one, I think landlines are a factor because people don't use their landlines anymore. My parents got rid of theirs.
Landlines are not. I mean, even my parents still have a landline, but like, it's basically non-existent.
Yeah.
Like, no one really calls our
except for like
phone at this point.
Credit bureaus and spam and solicitors and stuff. And I think that's
in my opinion, like, landlines. Side note: landlines are basically like, you know how like people used to and still kind of do with their like junk email, or it's like anything that they think might be like turn into spam, they just send it to their junk email. It's like, that's basically what home phones are now. It's like, all right, if I don't trust this company, I'm going to put my my landline because I don't want them calling my cell phone.
Yeah, like for like companies that you want to get deals and stuff on, like Victoria's Secret or like Barnes and Noble, you want to get deals on, and they'll send you emails, and you're like, well, I'm gonna unsubscribe and send it to spam.
Yeah.
And I think the landlines is one big deal, and then like I said the other day, I didn't think the Cuban turnout would be that bad, or like be that high. But I think it's also that, but also I think the legal immigrants voting, like the legal Hispanics, they didn't have good polling data because they've never voted. But I think they kind of feel a sense of like, I came through the country legally.
I think
I believe this guy. I think the illegals should come here legally. I think that also.
And after the 2012 defeat, Republicans were struggling. I don't know if you remember this, but I think Reince Priebus was the one that put it together. the GOP basically came out and put together a playbook of how they're going to basically revamp the Republican Party. Now, with Donald Trump, they've done the exact opposite of what they said in this book, but, like, basically the idea behind the book or the, like, plan or whatever was, how are we going to reshape the Republican Party? And Democrats were sitting there, like, you know, celebrating. I think Democrats got complacent under Barack Obama.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
he
in my opinion, terrible president. He never reached over 3% growth GDP. He just destroyed relations. But aside from that fact,
yeah, we can talk about that because he did also bring us out of the worst recession since the Great Depression. But again, we can argue about that later.
Statistics have come out that we'll argue about it later. But he's so like exorbitant with his, like, he's very likable, I guess. Like, his personality. He has a great personality. Like, everyone, all kinds of people I know that are, like, Democrats or, like, even moderates or moderate Republicans are like, I like Barack Obama. He's a really nice guy. He's really cool and funny. And I'm like, you don't realize, like, what he's done. And then I'll, like, explain stuff to them, and they're like, wow, really? And
I think it's just, that comes with perspective, because, like, I mean, I used to, so I don't know if I've talked about this as much on this thing, but, like, I grew up a conservative. You know, up until I voted for Romney in 2012. Like, you know, so I don't want to claim that I, like, understand, you know, conservatives at this day and age, because I've kind of, like, switched my opinions and have had a liberal thinking for a little bit while now, but, like, I know that the feeling you have, because I used to have it towards Obama. But, like, but I think generally, like, you can't, look, take politics completely out of it. You can't say that you don't like Barack Obama. Like, I feel like you can't argue that he's, like, not
if politics are completely out of it and he hasn't become the president and he's just, like, a regular guy, like, talking to me, I think he'd be a normal, fine person to talk to, and, like, but it's so hard to say that now because,
basically,
he's a very likable personality to him.
Now, but we kind of got sidetracked, but going back to kind of what the point what I was trying
you were trying
to was saying that, like, because the Democrats under Barack Obama have had a decent amount of success. I mean, you can't even argue that. I'm not saying no. I'm not. Okay, no. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying here. I'm saying a decent amount of success in getting Democrats elected. Not necessarily not necessarily that we can argue later, like, oh, the economy is, like, better or not, the nation's better or not. I'm saying getting Democrats into leadership positions, Democrats have had success.
Yeah, definitely.
Under Barack Obama.
And that's one thing I think Hillary took advantage of during this election. Barack Obama, like we said in class earlier tonight, Barack Obama went out to these inner city places and was like, hey, you guys got to get out to vote. And then obviously, you know, the old the Obama phone, everybody knows about that. But he went out to these people and reached out to them and, like, tried to get their vote. Hillary just took it for granted and was like, hey, I'm going to get the black vote. And that statistic, I think she dropped,
I never expressed this, but I never thought Hillary was going to get the level of support from African Americans that Barack Obama did. Barack Obama set like records as far as, like, black voter turnout.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes sense because
he's the obviously first black president.
Yeah, exactly. Like yes. Yeah. So that makes sense. So, like, to say that Hillary Clinton or any Democrat was going to, for that matter, was going to get the same amount of, like, black voter turnout.
No, not it. That turnout wasn't based on total numbers. It was based on percentages. Like, what percent of the black vote did they get? And Hillary Clinton.
Oh, okay.
So Obama. I have the stats right here. I just pulled them up. Obama had 93% of the black vote in 2012, running against Romney. And Hillary had 88% this year. So that's a 5% drop. I mean, there's
I
not.
don't. I mean, yeah, and we can like, but that what I'm saying is like that's almost because like think about it like you're voting for the first African American president in the history of the United States. I think even some Republican leaning like black people might
To an
consider
extent,
consider a vote for Obama
I feel like
or independent. We'll put it this way: independent.
yeah. I just feel like personally. Well, this was Or
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Hillary Clinton did not mobilize. Here's the like just the basics. Hillary Clinton did not mobilize the black vote the way she wanted. She did not mobilize the young vote the way she wanted. She did not.
I think she just took it for granted.
She. And this is the problem to a certain like, policy wise, at least from a Democratic standpoint, policy wise, like, she seems like a great president, but she's
not Democratic. She's not like when I think of a Democrat, I think of like John F. Kennedy, like a.
Well, I'm not okay. I'm not
like
arguing, but I'm saying if I go pull up her website right now and read her policies,
it's left wing.
She sounds like a very. But the problem was she's not. And do I have confidence that like? And I'm saying this is from a Democratic standpoint, so. Because I'm trying to make a point. Do I have confidence that if she were to have won this election, that she would get into office and do a decent job? I'm not saying like amazing or anything, but decent job?
Yeah.
Yes. The problem is she does not motivate people the way a Barack Obama type does.
That's what I was...
And you saw that it's like the largest Clinton event I went to was the people? Bernie Sanders event. And like granted, I think like the way, in all fairness, the way the Clinton events were set up was for a more like intimate, like homey type event. Whereas like like the Trump rally was like let's rent out U.S. Bank Arena. But
and I was completely going off topic a little bit. I was completely wrong. Remember I said the other day Trump has no ground game whatsoever, and he will not win because of this like huge turnout with 30,000 people in an event center. I was completely wrong with that. Like I admit it. I just didn't expect.
He still doesn't have a ground game, but the problem is like Trump.
He had the
is running a campaign that's never been run before.
Yeah.
So. Like you said, people didn't know how to analyze the large turnout at his events because no one has ever before in a campaign just on events, and just talked on Twitter. Twitter didn't Twitter was like a thing in 2012, but like it wasn't nearly as big.
I mean, you even go back
to 2008 and it's brand new.
I remember getting a Twitter when I was in
So less than a decade ago, Twitter wasn't even really a factor, and almost less than 10 years later, Donald Trump is basically running his campaign from his Twitter account.
Oh yeah.
So like this is stuff that's like brand new. We don't understand. And yes, Clinton to a T ran a perfect traditional campaign. So did a lot of the Republicans. But we don't technology has advanced. Young voters think differently.
Well,
there's so many factors that I think it's why the polls were wrong too. The pollsters were wrong. There's so many new factors that people haven't accounted for, and I think this was the wake up call.
And I think there was also
going to
a
change
skew,
that stuff.
Kind of like we mentioned. I don't think it was too big of a skew, but people who would get calls from pollsters and I'm so pissed off with the establishment. I don't want to answer this pollster, so I'm going to tell them I'm voting for Hillary. I'm voting for nobody. I feel like that did happen little bit.
A dead gorilla. Harambe got 11,000 votes.
So absurd. I don't know.
But
I don't know why that.
I think
that makes
we are in a transition point more than just the fact that we elected our first president that has had zero government or military experience. But we are in a transition point because campaigns will be run differently from here on out.
Definitely.
Running a campaign has not changed in basically the history. I mean, it's evolved, but it hasn't.
It's like media types have evolved. So like when the newspaper came out, they started putting ads in the newspaper.
Or when like all of a sudden TV ads. But like that was almost predictable.
Yeah.
There's never been a point where like the complete like thinking behind running a campaign has changed. And I think like this is that point. Like,
see, I don't think it'll be a complete change like that. I think this was just a freaking weird year.
I think the way I think it'll go is like, yes, like the basics of campaigning will stay the same, but like there will be more emphasis on online and social media use. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, Clinton had a like Twitter account. I actually followed her, and she got like on a good day, she'd tweet something and would get, a solid 2,000-3,000 retweets.
Oh yeah.
Almost everything Donald Trump tweeted got between, like, even on a shitty day, Donald Trump was getting like 6,000 to 8,000 retweets.
Yeah, even
on a
even
good
when
day, it was like
even when he
six figures
retweeted
for retweets.
Even when he retweeted the thing of Ted Cruz's wife, I think he had over 6,000 or 7,000 retweets. Like
Donald Trump, and this is what people don't realize too. When you talk about reaching voters, Donald Trump, I think, has like, and maybe we should go look this up. Here, I'll look it up real quick. But Donald Trump, I think, has like 8 million, or even higher than that, maybe, like, Twitter followers.
Oh,
like, think about how many, with one click of a button, he is reaching out to like 8 million people.
Oh yeah,
like, which is unheard of in
crazy insane.
Like, history up to this point, like.
And this year it was just like a battle of the terribles. Like, that movie, The Incredibles. Like, if you made a movie out of this.
My bad. Oh shit! I completely underread. Donald Trump has 14.2 million followers on Twitter.
Jeez, old Pete.
So every time he tweets, that's what I'll look up that next. Every time he tweets, he is reaching 14.2 million people.
Well, more than that too, because you have people who will retweet
and if you think about that, that is free advertisement. He is not paying a dime to tweet things out, and he's reaching 4.2 million people.
And I
looked at because I did it for research for our class. Hillary Clinton outspent Donald Trump by double of what Donald Trump spent. Is what Hillary Clinton spent.
that was,
and
that's what I saw.
And it is up until this point in history. If it is like you're almost guaranteed that if you outspend your opponent by that much money, that you're going to win the election.
I saw that. I think Hillary spent $57 million in TV advertising. And then Trump spent $25. But, flip it around, Trump spent $49 million in social media advertising. So like Twitter and stuff
Hillary
like that.
Clinton has 10.8 million followers, but like, I think when I first followed her, that was a lot lower. Still,
But Trump had, so that's kind of like going what we were saying before. Trump went and spent the opposite, double the opposite. So for like social media stuff, he spent in online advertising, I think it was like 49 million or something like that. But Clinton spent like in digital media marketing, which is like online, Twitter, social media stuff. She spent $8.4 million through like the entire election in digital media marketing since July. So if you think about that, $8.4 million compared to, I think Trump said $64 million through online and direct mail operations.
Yeah,
which is insane. If
what I'm saying is like
they completely flipped around from TV advertising, which was all Hillary's idea, and Trump did all social media.
I mean, let me ask, and this is obviously just the two of us. This is but this is like, I'm just personally, how much TV do you watch? With TV, like traditional TV, so...
Well, let me rephrase the question. So TV that Hillary Clinton would be advertising on, or TV in general?
Just TV. Normal, like cable.
So I watch...
typical 100 channels?
I watch the Tennessee game on Saturdays for 4 hours. I'll see a little bit of political ads on there, but I mean, obviously, I have my mind made up. But for like the independent voter, I don't think the independent voter watches that much. Like me personally, I watch maybe 4 hours a week.
Outside of sports, and outside of sporting events, I don't. I think I maybe watch half an hour.
The only reason I watch 4 is because I watch
traditional cable TV anymore.
The only reason I watch 4 is because I watch HGTV.
And the reason
that's literally
the reason I bring that up is because we are the future. Like I'm not, like we're currently because like we're able to vote, but I'm saying we are kind of representative. And this is just 2 people, but I think if you go look at our generation of people, you'd see that trend of moving away from the traditional media market more towards online services.
Yeah, and
even like shows like Comedy Central, for example. I can go watch like their shows on their website at any point I want to. Mm-hmm. You look at like even the
I'm surprised they haven't started charging
major
for that, though.
late night shows. Well, they advertise.
Yeah.
They advertise on their website. So that's like basically they're still commercials in a sense.
Yeah.
But and that's how they do it free is they basically get people paid. But all the late night shows, the big primetime late night shows that people always back in
5 years ago.
Yeah, back in the 20th century, that was like they went and watched even into the very first part of the 21st century.
Oh yeah.
People would tune into these shows and that's what they watch. Those same people are admitting now that they're basically operating a 24-hour media market where they host their show for that hour on TV, but then their clips of their show go onto YouTube, and YouTube is where they get millions of views. I'm talking the Jimmy Fallon types, the Stephen Colbert types, so much of what we do now is online media and social media.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if you think about it though, if I think back, I think I started watching Netflix in about 5-6 years ago was when it started getting big, maybe 7 years ago. But before that, I would sit on the couch and watch TV.
I don't think, and bringing this whole thing full circle, pollsters have not caught up.
Oh, definitely
with the trends, because the trends have only existed now for 5 to 10 years at most. So how can they necessarily completely accommodate for everything in a 10-year period? Which in the grand 10 years of that's a whole decade, but in the grand scheme of even the United States, that's a very, very small section.
Yeah. And it's just crazy to think about that. So I kind of want to transition a little bit into what do you think, well, I can start off and we can get some conversation about it, but what do you think about what's going to come out of the Trump campaign? Personally...
You mean the Trump election? Trump presidency?
Trump presidency.
Yeah. We're there now.
Well, personally, I want to believe he's going to govern as a statist.
Who knows? If the craziest of liberals are foreseeing the future, yes, it will be rule. Yeah. But let's bring it down a notch and
10 notches.
Hope that the integrity of the presidency stays intact.
I think it will, and going back to 2008 and 2012 when Barack Obama got elected, I was like, okay, I don't like this guy whatsoever. And I remember back in 2008, I was in 8th grade, and I was like, okay, I don't want this guy to be my president. I was getting deep into politics in 8th grade.
This might sound crazy.
You listen to your parents all the time.
This might sound crazy. have been involved in politics since about the 5th grade. I remember
That's how I've been.
debating my friend who was always like which is funny now because I'm like a pretty big liberal, but like I remember
You'll
like
grow
sitting.
You'll grow out of it. You will.
I remember sitting in 5th grade debating my liberal friend about Bush. I think it was it Bush Gore?
Yeah.
Was it Bush Gore?
It was Bush Gore or Bush Kerry. Bush Gore was 2000. Bush Gore was 2000.
It couldn't have been 2000 because
grade. Or that wasn't when I was in
it was
kindergarten.
definitely not. So it was Bush Kerry.
Bush Kerry and
Bush Kerry then. And I remember debating my friend in like the 5th grade about politics. So like that just blows my mind. But yeah, so like I'm the same.
Yeah,
like,
but like going back to that in 2008 and 2012, even 2012 after all the terrible things I think he did.
I remember. So this is like it's crazy what you remember throughout your life because there's a lot of forgettable.
The member berries.
Yeah. But like it's crazy what I remember vividly, and this is kind of a side note. I remember vividly, you know, maybe I just remember presidential elections. I remember vividly the Kerry Bush election. I actually even remember I was very, very young, but the Gore Bush.
I was in kindergarten then. I still remember it because I remember my teacher in kindergarten.
So I remember going nuts when the Supreme Court announced that Bush had won the election. Like,
I remember I was in kindergarten. We were in our classroom, and we had who we were voting on in kindergarten. And I went to a Catholic grade school, so like kids generally followed whatever they heard from their parents, and
I think everyone, honestly,
and everybody was voting for Bush, and everybody was like, "Yeah, you're cool." And literally every single kid, there were like 20 kids in the class, and even the teacher was saying she's voting for Bush after that, and we're like, "Oh, cool, we follow our teacher." But it was like, just thinking back at it, I remember having the two pictures up on the wall of the two candidates. I was like, "Wow." Now that I think back at it, it's crazy thinking about that.
So I remember that. I remember the 2008 election. I was in high school. And I remember, you know, like, thinking the end of the world, you know, because, like, at the time, like I said, I was, my parents are extremely conservative, and I was
It was damn near the end of the world.
I remember, let's see. Oh, I remember 2010. I actually went to a Tea Party rally with my parents.
Wow.
When the Tea Party thing first started.
What the hell
Tea Party movement got going, and then I remember
Well, hell, I remember freshman year of college when I first met you, and you were a hardcore conservative. And then slowly over the year of freshman year, I remember you started, like, you were still conservative and, like, but you were a little socially liberal. A little bit. And you started leaning towards the planning stuff, and then I think after, like, 3 years, like, 2 years after freshman year, so last year, I started talking to you, and I was like, he doesn't believe in this anymore? What? And just, like, seeing a complete change. And then, like, even people, like, I know, like, my cousin, he's like, Brian's a liberal? I was like, yeah. He, like, kind of switched over. He's like, I did not know that at all. And it's just, like, completely changed. Like, I just didn't, thinking back at it, it's crazy, but...
I think I've always, like, had in the back of my mind, I've always had, like, this, like, little sympathy for the liberal cause. I think it took, like, being introduced to something that, like, has the liberal Russian. I mean, there was even a point, like, where I was even kind of independent, where it was like, okay, like...
Like, more of, like, a libertarian.
Not libertarian, but, like, I still consider myself a Republican, but, like, I felt, like, that because so much of planning, or our major planning is based on the idea that, like, we have to do stuff through government. Mm-hmm. It's like I almost have to, like, understand the liberal side.
And that's where I started.
And then I started, like...
That's where I started, like, freshman year. I was, like, full on for, like, urban planning and everything. And then, like, sophomore year, I was, like... People would ask me what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing urban planning, like, you know, like, planning out cities and stuff. And they're like, oh, cool. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm, like, designing stuff. And then last year, people were asking me, like, what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm doing urban planning. I mean, I don't really like it, but I went to the school for design and, like, to learn design and 3D modeling and everything. And they're like, why don't you like it? I was like...
Because it's liberal.
I was like, because it's literally a bunch of, like, far leftists, and I literally can't agree with a single thing they say half the time. But, like, I can still talk about it. And, like, I do think...
And I think that's why I'm able to relate to you and to so many people on the other side to a level, is because I understand the rationality behind these things.
And, like, I even... Like, It's completely off topic kind of now, but I just, like, I think there can be a place for urban planning, but I feel like it would be more in, like, non-profits and stuff like that, like 3CDC, but then you get into the urban planners, get them into 3CDC, and they all hate 3CDC now because they helped revive Over the Rhine, so I'm just like, I don't even know what to say.
I see, and I mean, I still hold, like, for example, we've talked about before the TPP. I, like, support the TPP. They're still, which blows my mind. Like, can we just admit that, like, Donald Trump is wrong on that? Like,
on what, trade?
Trade, yes.
Oh, I've admitted it hundreds of times. I think a majority of Republicans have admitted it. I mean, I'm glad you're going against that because Bernie Sanders was for it.
Bernie Sanders was wrong, Hillary Clinton's wrong, Donald Trump's wrong. Like,
TPP is terrible, though. I mean,
the thing...
just because it's so big. And
fair, but the thing that, like, I don't get it. It's like, that, like... And this was and this is why, like, maybe, like, we're kind of off topic now, but, like, it's bringing it back to this election. Like, so many of these, like, disenfranchised people that we were talking about earlier, like, they, like, saw in Donald Trump, like, this idea that he's going to bring back these jobs that literally don't exist anymore.
I know, and let me get on that topic real quick, because I had a huge argument with my friends over this in a group chat, and they were like, Donald Trump is right on trade because he's not actually going to do it. He's doing it like Reagan did it to Russia. And I was like, no, he's doing it because he firmly believes that he should tax the piss out of these companies for leaving and finding cheaper taxes and making money.
Yeah,
because they can't make money in the United States with that.
He wants to, like, put a 35% tariff on any company that sells something or, like, imports something to the United States. That is... And I just read, like, his first 100-day plan, or whatever.
Yeah, that's like...
Like, in the first 100 days, he wants to be able to put a tariff, like, on anything that is manufactured outside the United States.
But I do question that to an extent, though, because he also says, I'm going to lower the taxes on businesses here in America. So I feel like there's, like, a thin line that he's walking, so, like, he wants to lower the taxes here. And if he lowers the taxes here, the companies will come back.
What we kind of talked about in our class today is that, like, this election on both sides, like, was devoid of policy and more interested in personality. There was no, like...
Oh, completely against
the third debate probably had the most policy talk, and I'd say 25% of it was actually spent on policy issues.
Yeah, and it's... But getting back to my topic before we started having our member berries.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
But like, going back to the 2008 and 2012 elections, like, I'm kind of pissed off with kids our age now. Like, I don't care if whatever belief you have, like, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on. In 2008 and 2012, I said, Barack Obama's our president. I will firmly support him as president until he does something wrong. I will condemn him when he does something wrong, in my opinion.
I think I go where you're going with this, and I'm actually going to agree with it.
Why the hell are kids rioting over it?
The problem is, it's not kids that are rioting.
No, these are like children.
I 100% agree that rioting that's going on right now is unbelievable.
I mean, think about the rationality behind that. People in Oakland, California,
Here, let me put it
are tearing down their towns to riot somebody who lives in New York City.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. If people would have put in the amount of effort that they are for rioting and creating these "we don't stand for Trump" rallies and doing
He's not
this,
our president.
Donald Trump would not be our president. Hillary Clinton would.
Yeah, and also what I saw it on CNN. They were talking about stats on. They were showing the voting numbers. Some of the races, Clinton could have won if there wasn't a third party candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was mainly because it was proven in statistics that Gary Johnson was taking a majority of Hillary Clinton supporters. Because Republicans don't support Gary Johnson as much, but they were showing that it's crazy how if all these people who voted for Gary Johnson that were like majority Bernie Sanders supporters would have voted for Hillary Clinton
and those
instead.
Those are the
butthurt people who
I've admitted on
who are
our
now
podcast before that I voted for Bernie Sanders, but it's because I actually understood Bernie Sanders' policies. I unfortunately think that a decent amount of Bernie Sanders supporters only supported him because he was promising them shit. So, let me put it this way. I understand that if I want a single payer healthcare system and, college to, help with my college tuition, then I'm going to pay more in taxes. I understand that, but I'm willing to pay that.
I'm not.
I know you're not, and that's why we have this show, because we like to, debate these things. But I'm just saying, this is my rationale. Yeah. And I personally think that I am willing to pay more taxes for the public benefits that I receive from paying those taxes. So I understand, and Bernie Sanders, in order to get a lot of his policies passed and a lot of what he wants passed,
he would need Congress.
Would need to significantly raise taxes.
Yeah.
But personally, and I'm not trying to debate this right now, but personally, I believe I am okay with my taxes going up significantly to pay for these things. I always forget what source it is, but I think it might have been the Washington Post reported on the majority, or not the majority, but at least half of Bernie Sanders supporters wanted all that stuff. Basically wanted their cake and
they didn't
they basically wanted their cake or eat it too, whatever that's saying. Yeah. It's they basically didn't want their taxes to go up.
Yeah.
But they wanted free college, free health care, free whatever. It's no, it doesn't work that way. It's you have to be willing to make sacrifices.
And that's what I like
somewhere
about
else.
You, because you actually understand the economic concept of it a little bit. In my mind, I don't think you think through fully with it. It won't be successful with the government running it, but I think that's good that you're thinking about the economics of it, and you will get taxed, and taxes will be raised a significant amount for healthcare and education. But there, for example, John Kerry, he had his boat, he hardcore liberal. He had his boat he lived in New Jersey. He put his boat in Massachusetts. He docked his boat in Massachusetts so he could avoid $500,000 in taxes. So obviously, the people who are proposing this, they know the taxes are coming, or they know a way to avoid them. Mm-hmm. And the kids our age don't realize people I don't like are the people who want this stuff, but they don't follow it. So
the Bernie Sanders supporters that went to Gary Johnson don't understand policy, and they don't understand
a single thing. They don't read. They
don't understand government. Because if I were to, and I know people listening to this can't see visually what I'm doing, but if I were to extend my arm as far right as I could, and if I were to extend my arm as far left as I could, Bernie Sanders would be almost as far right as I could go. Or, my bad, as far left as I could go. And, Gary Johnson would be as far right as I could go. Yes, they're both, anti-establishment candidates.
Yeah, and that's...
but they are completely...
you could have voted for Trump.
They are completely... they are completely devoid on policy issues.
They're completely devoid of rationale whatsoever. And that's one point I want to get to. Uh, like, back to the point of me, like, saying I support Obama. I support any president we vote.
And that's what I'm saying. And like, I am sitting here
and like
right now. I am upset. I said it at the beginning of this episode, and I'm saying it again now. I feel like I got punched in the gut.
Yeah.
When I like sitting there watching the results come in, I feel like I got punched in the gut. But I am not going to sit there now and be like, I am not going like, do you remember how upset liberals were when Donald Trump came out and said, I'm not going to accept the results if
exactly
if I lose?
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
And everyone was like, no, like, for the integrity of the United States, you have to accept the results. Now we sit here, it's almost, I'll get to that in a second. Now we sit here, and Donald Trump has been elected our president by a popular vote, or by the Electoral College, which is the system that we use right now. Like, I can't sit there and be like, well, no, I'm not going to accept that result.
So I'll take this.
Now, I am going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that his policies don't get anywhere.
Yeah, and that's what they don't
But that's
realize.
acceptable from like that's the way our government's supposed to work.
You're supposed to
there's checks and balances.
Yes, exactly. And that one, I mean, I kind of want to refer to other talk shows for this, like Glenn Beck, for example. He's a far right conservatarian type guy. He's a Mormon. I think he's a little out of the box sometimes.
He is.
And lately he has gone a lot more out of the box, but he's been an ardent never Trumper because he said, and he's brought up, I've listened to his show. I like listening to everybody.
Yeah, and I hate Glenn Beck. Well, I don't hate him. Like, hate's a strong word. But I disagree with everything Glenn Beck says, but Glenn Beck actually came out and said something about Obama.
He said in 2008 and 2012,
not even
don't
that.
agree
He
with...
came out in a recent interview and said, like, I actually really kind of, like, not necessarily policies, but he said something about, like, liking Obama and that he, like, almost voted for Hillary Clinton. Like,
well, he didn't say he almost voted for him. He said he's thought about it. He's thought about voting for him. And what he said in 2008, he brought up, like, all these conversations. Like, in 2012, after Mitt Romney didn't get elected, he's like, I'm not in the future going to support a candidate for the Republican Party that does something like this, and we have to hold our noses and vote for him, and I'm not going to do it. And he played it when everybody was like hitting him, like, "Why are you never Trump? You're going to make Trump lose. Who are you, for Hillary?" And he's like, and like especially Sean Hannity was against him for it, and he's like, "No, I said this back in 2012."
I said hate's a strong word. Sean Hannity, like, I might as well almost hate because he drives me up. Sean Hannity is what's wrong. If, like, the rioters were what's wrong with the liberal side, like, Sean Hannity is almost what's wrong with the right side because he doesn't rationally, like, he doesn't give chances for liberals to think or, like, express their opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a little bit fine because he's on the right and he's going against like MSNBC and stuff like that, but
yeah, no, I'm not saying there's not like liberal equivalents to Sean Hannity.
Yeah, and I just think it's absurd that kids are arguing this, like, to an extent.
My thing is, like, so like in the past 2 days, I've seen a lot of things, and one of the things I've seen is like this formation. It's like, but beyond the rioting, there are, like, I've seen on Facebook now, there's gonna be a Cincinnati rally for, like, Never Trump, and, like, Ohio, like, the rally at Ohio State for Never Trump, and, all these, like, different things, and I'm just, like, sitting there, I'm like, if young people and millennials and whoever would have put as much effort into fighting the election of Trump, like, after he got elected, as, like, they are, well, my bad, if they would have put as much effort into just going and showing up to the polls and voting as they did for fighting the election of Trump now,
I know.
Hillary Clinton would be president.
Yeah. And I just we'll have to see. I mean,
I think the biggest thing like throughout everything is like no one ever thought it could happen.
Oh, I know.
So they kept continually underestimating it, and here we are today with a Trump presidency, and people are saying WTF, like, you know. But if you look at, like, it's almost like if you look at things in hindsight, there were so many indicators saying, no, you need to pay attention to this, because it's like, if you don't, Trump will be elected, and that's where we are today.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. We'll have to wait till he gets in office, and, I mean, like I said, I'm not a firm Trump supporter. I'm just going to hold his feet to the fire, and just got to vote for who we want and make sure we contact our senators and congressmen and say, hey, you gotta hold them accountable.
If we were to, like, talk about it, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, conservative, like, libertarian, Green Party, whatever. Where you can make a difference if you're, like, not a politician is being active at the local level. Electing people, like, that's, like, politics is not built from the top down. It's built from the ground up. And, you know, you want a Democratic Party that supports a Bernie Sanders without, you know, actively trying to undermine his his primary run, then you elect officials that think that way, you know?
Yeah.
You don't the reason the DNC did things like that is because the elected officials in place thought that way. You know, and there's a great way to get rid of those people. It's elect someone else the next time they're up for re-election. Like,
and I don't think people realize it, and unfortunately the Democrats, they keep complaining, but they can't garner the support from the people to get them out to come during the primaries and get them out to come during, like, the intermission
Democrats,
elections.
I think this is a huge wake-up call for them, and I'm predicting, which I've obviously, you know, not predicted the right thing recently, but I'm predicting that you're going to see from the Democratic Party in the next 5 years what you saw from the Republican Party in the last 5 years, where
it's going to be
it's like, you know, in 2010 all of a sudden a Tea Party, you know, like, became a thing, and, like, Tea Party candidates swept across you know, Congress, you know, and that is, I mean, I hate to admit it, but you want to talk about some, like, a group of people building, like, momentum from the ground up. It's the Tea Party. It's the Tea Party. Like, they, in 2010, all of a sudden, like, you know, far-right conservatives were like, we're fed up, we're, you know, we're done, like, we need to do something about this. And they built a movement, and now they have a, well, we'll see, because who knows with Donald Trump, but they have a candidate who is more in line with their views, and they have a Republican Party that's more in line with their views. I think moving forward,
I mean, he's been speaking on their views, but I don't think he's.
No, I don't know.
All the Tea Party people didn't really want him. He just kind of.
Yeah.
I think he garnered more of the support of the people who were just fed up with the Obama administration.
I think, though, that the Democratic Party needs to do, like, I don't think they need to, like, go to, like, extremes, but I think they need to at least reanalyze where they are as a party.
Yeah, definitely. And it's gonna take time. We'll see how everything goes, but we got a road ahead of us to wait up on.
We got an interesting next 4 years, that's for sure.
So we will stay in the loop. I guess we can wrap up this episode. There's not much else to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really plan much else for anything, so.
We will see you guys in episode 6 on Sunday.
I think Sunday, yeah.
Alright, cool. See you guys then.